Hello, I'm Al Beatty, and this is tip number 3, originally published in Fly Tire magazine several years ago. Today, we're going to talk about adjusting the density of hackle on your fly. In the old days, often we had to use 4, 5 feathers on a fly when we were using India capes. Today, we have genetically engineered hackle produced here in the United States. Excellent stuff. Feathers are long and do a great job. And we can make a very heavily hackled fly using 1 feather. Come on, let's show you how to do it. Here we've placed a hook in the vise and attached our tying thread, covering the front part of the hook, leaving the thread hanging about halfway back on the shank. Now what I have here is a grizzly feather that I've stripped one end of the stem, and I'm just going to tie it on. And our first application of hackle is going to be with just a single pass of the feather. I want you to notice, you see how that slipped off the thread and it kicked back? And I just automatically, if you come like that, if you keep it on a smooth base, then you'll end up with a nicely applied hackle. Okay, now we're at the front of the hook, and we'll just tie that off. Now, that makes a pretty good looking hackle. But it's a single feather, and it obviously is a single feather because you can see some gaps in there, and it's just the barb density is not as dense as it could be. Well, to increase that just a little bit, let's wrap the thread to the back of the hook. Notice how I'm kind of squiggling the thread back and forth so it doesn't crush the hackle barbs until I get to the back. And now I'm going to wrap my thread, or my hackle, one more time, going back until it reaches the thread. And I'll tie that off. Now that's a lot better placement of the hackle, and that's the equivalent of a 2 hackle pass, if you will. Well, if you want it really heavily hackled, we're going to come forward one more time. Notice how I'm wiggling it back and forth so that it doesn't match the fibers. Again, you want to continue to do that. And now we're going to wrap this feather forward one last time, really filling in the hackle application. It makes for a very densely applied hackle. It'll float a rock. And it has been crisscrossed back and forth a couple of times, and it's basically impervious. It's bulletproof. Let's go ahead and tie that off. We'll use our half hitch tool to apply a half hitch, and then another, and then we'll use that same tool to apply a double turn whip finish. And cut that off. Trim off the waist part of the feather. And there you've got a really heavy hackle application, and it's bulletproof. Let me here's a razor blade. It's going to take a lot to break that apart. An old snaggletooth brown may not tear it up the first time he bites on it. After a few fish it might, but for now that's the way it looks.